Happy Thursday night or Friday morning or whatever time you're watching this. It's good to have you on the rundown. This week, we're going to start, as always, with a couple of news items. We're going to jump into some therapy for me, and then we're going to talk about the costs of technology. What is it that these amazing tools, that these amazing services offer us? What is the cost that comes with that? Not just the financial cost, but the environmental cost, the emotional cost, the sociological cost. We're going to talk about all of that and try and unpack it for you. Here on the rundown, it's good to see you. Hey everyone, welcome, welcome, welcome. And I want to say a special hello to some of the folks who are watching. Tony is not just watching, he's also on the panel. But we got, let's see, Leo Mindell is here watching. Leo Mindell knows what to do. He knows it's time to dance. Brody Hefner is here. Good to see you. Good to see all of you. And it's especially good to see my friends here on my panel. Hello there. Oh God, Sky. What is on your head?
What? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm supposed to have it on. There. Oh, there you are.
That's so much better. Yes, that's so much better.
You look
I'm
so
going
real.
directly to Tamra. I'm going right to Tamra.
Wow.
How you doing, Tamra?
That was like a Gong Show moment.
Is that the real?
Great.
Wait, was that the real thing? You think? I don't know. We're gonna have to ask him. You
We'll
doing well?
have to ask Sky.
Doing well, Tamra?
I am doing well.
All right.
Excited
I
to
think
be here.
tonight you and I are both going to therapy with the
We
therapy
should
bot.
both go to therapy. I
Yeah.
have a lot of anxiety.
With the you and me both. Yeah. Hey, Sky, is that the real thing?
That's the Octa, one of the original ones, and I still am learning how to twiggle the buttons and things.
That's terrible that I just said the real one. That
the
was
real
so,
one.
I know that was so
That was like
Appleist.
This is Jen something. Hi, I'm sorry I was not here last week. Thank you for your positive thoughts. My brother's passing was sudden, and it was good to be with family.
Wow.
And learning about the history of myself. And I will be sending you a picture of my 1-year-old version of me. There was a Polaroid that my dad had from 19. I have the exact same smile. It's crazy.
Perfect. It's perfect. Sending our
It would
love
be
to
great
you.
for your avatar.
Sending lots of love to you. Lots of love to you.
Thank you.
That
Felt it.
voice behind the scenes was the amazing Lois. How are you, Lois?
I am doing so well. And that man, he was on my radio show. He's going to be on my radio show.
Mr. Sky. She's getting everyone.
I know.
Getting everyone
You.
on the show.
David, you.
Oh, me. Yes. Sorry. I was there too, and I will be there too. Yeah, you're getting
it's a
everyone.
good day, and I'm in California, and it is going to be sunny now for a while.
All right.
The rain stopped.
We'll take it. We'll take it.
Yeah.
Any sun up north there, Dave?
Absolutely. We had a cold snap and it's over and spring is here now. We're going to be in the +6s to 10 to 18 and 20 now. So the next week it's all going to melt away and the sure sign is seeing all the rabbits leaping about and chasing each other around because that says spring.
Amazing. You know what's really sad about what you just said though is that me and most of us what's the nice
urban
word?
dwellers?
No, I was Fahrenheit folks are assuming now that you are still covered in snow because you said 6 or 10, and that to me sounds like freezing weather.
No, 6 is melting weather. It's about 10 degrees above 32, so that'd be 42, 45 degrees.
Yeah, see, I can't do the conversions like that. You're just too smart for me. You know
who
else?
I've had to live on both worlds, so
there you go.
We deal with the Americans all the time up here, and we know how to translate what Americans say to us, and then what we say to them, and we translate. So
we're the
we
only
talk to each other
the
in
only ones
code,
who,
and then
the only ones who don't know metric. It's ridiculous. Hey Tony,
Isn't it?
how are your metric conversion skills?
My metric conversion skills are non-existent.
Like mine.
But I'm happy to be here, David, with you and the panel. I just left a worship service. We have worship service on Thursday nights, and one of the things that I shared in that worship service was that this time last year, I was in a hospital bed in this very room. And I am so thankful not to be I'm glad to be in the room, but not in the hospital bed.
We're thankful for that also. Absolutely. And I just want to say hello also that, let's see, DFW checking in. DFW.
Dallas, Fort Worth.
Thank you. Hello, Gary in Dallas, Fort Worth. Good to see you. And I would be remiss if I didn't say hello to this beautiful young lady, Dahlia, my daughter. Love that she's watching.
She's monitoring you.
Her boyfriend's brother's company was just invested in by OpenAI. It was front page news today that she alerted me to that OpenAI made their first investment in security. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's do some news.
Yeah.
Now, I know that I can always come here for therapy, but some people may want something different. They may not have the privilege that I do. And so, Tamara, you alerted me to our favorite TikToker who brought this to the rest of us. And then I immediately started Googling it, and I found all of these, amazing, I mean, from the MIT Technological Review, that folks are using chatbots as therapists. What can you fill us in on this?
Well, I know within my writing group, I had one of my writers emailed me and she was like, "Hey, I've been using ChatGPT as my therapist." I was like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "I don't have money for the therapist right now." And so she's like, it's really good at dream analysis. She goes, "I wake up in the morning and I say, 'Hey, I had this dream. Tell me about it.'" And I'm like, but it's so cold and sterile. And because she talks to it in such kind of a natural voice, she gets back a very calming therapy voice, and she swears by it. I haven't been able to take the plunge into that myself because I'm too anxious about it.
Yeah, I haven't either. But in this test that they ran, there were 210 participants over 8 weeks of clinical trial. And all of these people had symptoms of depression or generalized anxiety disorder, or they were at high risk for eating disorders. Half had access to Therabot, and a control group did not. By the way, I should say, if you Google Therabot, you're going to find a lot, or Therapy Bot, or whatever it's called, you're going to find a lot of other things with that name. None of those, there's one with dogs, there's one with, there's a lot of Therabots or therapy bots out there, so just be aware of that. So half had access, half did not have access. And participants responded to prompts from the AI and initiated conversations, about 10 messages per day. And look at this. This is crazy. Participants with depression experienced a 51% reduction in symptoms. The best results in the study, anxiety experienced a 31% reduction. Those at risk for eating disorders saw a 19% reduction. Now we have first of all, this is self-reporting. We have no idea if this is lasting. This was not a long-term, multi-year study, but this is interesting, no?
I think we should mention that it was not, Therabot is actually a trained GPT with therapy like information. So
Good
where
point.
my
This
friend
was
kind
not
of has,
just open
yeah,
AI.
so I
right.
do feel like we should do that because my friend
Yeah.
has been dabbling in just regular chat GPT, and there's a lot of reports of people using regular GPT.
Yep.
This is very specific. This was trained by people in the field utilizing all of the data in the field, so it came back, with a very different potential outcome than ChatGPT, because your ChatGPT is a mirror of what you've already given it, and so that may or may not be the best therapy out there. This is a very different thing, and I think it's really important to make that
Good
distinction.
point. In this article, he says they asked Jacobson, who's one of the leaders of this program, if he thinks the results validate the burgeoning industry of AI therapy sites. He says quite the opposite, cautioning that most don't appear to train their models on evidence-based practices like cognitive behavioral therapy. They likely don't employ a team of trained researchers to monitor interactions. What do you all think? What's your takeaway from this? Are any of you going to sign up for it? Would you do it? Go ahead, Lois.
Well, actually, I don't think I would do it, but I think that it's interesting, and I want to see more about the difference between the control group and the Therabot group, because they were saying it's a reduction of something. Is that compared to what they were like when they started, or is that compared to each other?
I'd have to bet that if you read the study, you would see that, but I don't see that in the article here. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of studies that get done, and then there's a lot of reporting on studies that get done that aren't really reported by the people who understood what the study was all about. So I need more information before I will form an opinion on this.
Right.
Interesting, though.
The white papers are available, and you can get kind of the information. I didn't deep dive into it either. But I do think that it is interesting. One of the things that I think would be an advantage, just knowing how bots work versus how humans work, is there's no unobjective information coming from the bot. Whereas humans, I don't care what you bring to any meeting that you have is yourself. So on the one hand, that's really helpful. And on the other hand, having an objective voice, like that's what we found with writers who've been using it for their revision. They are not giving it to someone who is a friend of theirs who comes with a lens of how they would write it. They're coming to a completely, here's the facts and here's the information that I found. This doesn't track. It's really kind of more clinical. So I think there's something interesting about it, but I wouldn't run to it yet.
I have a difficulty making comment on this because I have an in-house analyst. My wife is a psychiatrist and clinical psychologist, so I'm straight and I'm fine.
Fair enough. Sky, would you try this?
I'll just stay quiet on this.
I think, Dave, you are of anybody the one that should test this, because you are a case study with side by side with a human that did the studies, that did the training, that again, I've had brain surgery. I want a brain surgeon working on my head. I don't want somebody that has Chat GPT.
Yeah.
I don't know. I got to tell you,
I'm and a sharp knife. You
are all in.
You and a sharp knife for not touching my head.
I would.
The only thing I would say that would help to have a psychologist or someone who is with a psychologist is the element of human in the exchange is the psychological cure. It's not the words you speak, and it's not the words that gets asked of you, and how you feel when you come in is expressed bodily and the rest. So when you go for help and it just tells you nice things about yourself, it's not therapy.
No,
if they come in and they say, I had a great day today and I want to tell you all about it, and from there you find out stuff they didn't even know they were telling you, And that's what a psychologist learns to do, is to listen for what they're not saying.
We could, when we learn more about this, we could do a whole session on this for sure. I think I've been in therapy my entire life. I'm a huge proponent of therapy. And what I'll say is that, sorry, let me actually change my frame. I'm not a therapist, but as a member of the clergy, I sit with people all the time and I hear lots of stuff. And I'm really good at being a listener until I'm not. That is, and I think that's true for everyone, that we bring our humanity and our foibles and our limitations and all of that to everything that we do. And the idea of having access to a therapist who doesn't have that baggage and who doesn't get distracted and who doesn't get distracted by...
Part of the therapy is that it's time limited, and that's part of the game. Yeah.
Well, it could be time limited also. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm going to return to it.
I would absolutely do it.
I do think that we are so flawed right now with our ChatGPT. It can do things, but it can't do everything. And this is one area where I don't want it to go wrong. I think having a study where it's being overseen by actual therapists who are in there kind of studying it is very different than people logging in by themselves to talk to ChatGPT or to talk to a AI who's going to give them advice, and for some of the time it's going to get it wrong, and we can't afford that.
And I've seen the Jurassic Park movie, and Jeff Goldblum got it right. Just because you can,
doesn't mean you should.
Doesn't mean you should. There you go.
There was I don't know if any of you watch it, and a lot of us talk about MacBreak Weekly on these shows, but this week in Google, they recently rebranded to Intelligent Machines. And it's actually a wonderful show. It's always been a wonderful show, but it's a wonderful show. They're really focusing on AI. And this past week, there were a lot of takeaways. And forgive me for not remembering the name of the guest that they had. It was not one of their regular guests. But he said something that was just very interesting about AI in general. He said that so much of what we're seeing now is marketing. The term AI, it's neither artificial nor intelligent. Why are we calling it that? It's neither of those things. It's not true intelligence, and it's not artificial. It was the whole... I would encourage people to go listen to it. It was a really fascinating episode. But some of this, a lot of this, and this is what I discovered when I started Googling Therabot, and I found all these, dog therapies and stuff, that so much of this is about marketing and sales. If a lot of folks talk about with the Apple Watch that the real power of the Apple Watch will be when it can give you accurate blood pressure, when it can give you accurate temperature, when it can really serve as a health tool. That'll be really profoundly impactful. And I think you can make this. I think you can make the same argument about AI, that it has the potential to serve as a really powerful health tool, mental health tool. Lois, you've been waiting patiently.
I've been waiting impatiently, actually. When we had that discussion about religion, and I said I preferred to go to meeting on Zoom, and I got looked at like, what? Well, that's because the relationship is not between me and the person on the next square, the relationship between me and God. And God's everywhere. So they're fine. But when it comes to this sort of stuff, this psychology stuff, this therapy stuff, I think it is absolutely essential that the person, the human being, be in the same room with the person that they're helping, because that whole physicality, that the context of one person with another person, I think that is really powerful, and I don't think you're going to get it with an AI.
For many people, it's cost prohibitive, though, and they will turn to AI.
Well, not just AI. A lot of people do online therapies. I did it for a while. It didn't work for me. I agree with Lois. For me, if I'm going to be with a person, I want to be with a person. But Speaking of therapy, have any
No,
of you
Tony
watched?
was going to get in here.
What'd you
You
say?
missed Tony. You missed
Yeah,
Tony.
Tony,
here. He's
Oh.
been waiting patient.
Tony, I'm so sorry.
That's okay, David. There was a couple of things that was shared that I wanted to speak to. The first thing was that I think you're absolutely right that the Apple Watch is a great tool that will be a excellent resource in the future. But I want to let you know that it was an excellent resource for me 2 weeks ago when I fell in my garage and was home alone, and it called 911,
Mhm.
let me know that I had fallen, which I knew I had fallen, and that there was blood everywhere. And the Apple Watch not only called 911, it contacted my sons who are a couple of states away, and it notified my wife, who was at the time an hour and a half away. And so the 911 operator stayed on the Apple Watch with me until help arrived. So I just wanted to put that in as a thumbs up for the Apple Watch as being a resource for some of us who are kind of clumsy. The other thing, the other thing I wanted to say is that I think that what everyone has shared in terms of the idea that therapy should be monitored and guided by a professional. But I would also say that if we go down the path that the learning, the LM is able to be trained by a therapist, that it will be a resource for those who are not able to get to a therapist. And I think it's important. I really want to share this, and David, I'm going to ask for forgiveness in advance. I watched a TikTok on yesterday where a gentleman was in distress, and he was a veteran who had been going to the VA hospital for therapy. And unfortunately for him, his therapist had been fired. And they did not let him know before he even arrived at the VA for therapy. And he was livid that, and him and his wife both came on TikTok and they were sharing, how all of this was handled. But I think the thing that I really want us to focus on in terms of that story is that I don't think that there would have been anyone who could have diffused that situation that particular person was in. However, I do believe that a properly trained therapy bot might be able to give someone else some support in a not as critical situation. And so, with things going the way that they're going, I just would advocate for us having as many resources in this time that we can get.
You're right. That's a good point. That we shouldn't. Perfection should not be the enemy of the good. And of course, when someone's life is at stake, I mean, when we're talking about life and death, that's different. But if we're talking about folks that would benefit from having easy access to a tool that, again, is not just OpenAI, but is trained, that can't be all bad. Speaking of therapy, have any of you watched Adolescence on Netflix? This is This Sky, did you?
I watched the link that you sent us and prepared us with, and I have also listened to some of the preparations.
Yeah.
And again, in the autumn magic of a thing, I come from theater. The rehearsal the week before, complete with the camera person being a cast member, they experimented, they tested, they practiced. This was not a one and done experience, even though it sounds like it's one take. Well,
Mm-hmm.
it was one take of a 30, 40 hour experience.
Rehearsal.
Also,
Yeah.
Well,
rehearsal.
so let's back up a little. So first of all, and I'm not doing any spoilers here because everything I'm telling
The
you
funniest
is
part was the editing in this thing afterwards is what showed you where editing comes in. And I thought that was the funny part, that took a lot more effort.
well, they actually put a YouTube out about the editing of this, and it was an April Fool's joke because there was no editing. So I'm not going to give anything away because you learn about this in the first 2 minutes of the show. But essentially, a young boy, maybe 12, 13, is accused of murdering a young girl from his school. And there are 4 episodes. The first episode is really about the police. The second episode is about the school. The third episode is about the boy. And the fourth episode is about his family. And in the third episode in particular, the entire episode is with him and a forensic psychologist. And they're having a discussion. The reason it's here, the reason it's part of this is because each episode was done in one take. Now, as Sky says, that doesn't mean that they did it in the first take. What that means is that they did it until they got one full take. There were no cuts.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing. So the third episode was done on the second take. They did it twice, I believe. I think that's the one. First of all, it's if you're triggered by murder, by children and things like that that are perhaps committing crimes.
Maybe
This is not the thing to watch. It's very emotional. It's very powerful, very moving, and very disturbing. Beautifully acted. The reason I brought it here is because we spend a lot of time behind cameras and thinking about shots and framing and the best way to craft a performance or a zoom or whatever. This was to me a completely unique way of telling a story. That again, they had to get it right in a take. There was no cutting. There's no editing at all. And I just thought it was fascinating.
But again, I come from theater.
Don't ruin this for me,
You
Sky.
do it all in one take. Yeah.
It's
you do
live.
3 scenes.
Yes, so
or
in
three
some ways, then this was
It's exactly
theater,
what it
just-
is.
Act
right.
1, Act
Right.
2, and Act 3. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you have to know it by heart, and you have to innovate if you miss a line. Yeah.
Right. And the young
And they
boy
do that
who
in
plays
film, too.
who plays the lead character in that episode 3, it's him and, like I said, it's him and this therapist or psychologist. I mean, the entire hour is
Them doing their thing.
right, is script and just memorizing all of that script. You're absolutely right, Sky. It's doing a play, but it's doing, in that case, it's doing a 2-person play. There's not a whole cast of characters to.
It's a 3-person play. There's a camera guy.
Sorry. Thank you, Tamara. That was actually
Because
beautiful.
that is
audience
what
is
makes it
just
different.
sitting
And
there.
I play
Yes.
in both worlds, but that is what makes
Yeah.
it different. And it's really significant that you have a cameraman who is doing those long takes. I remember the pilot of West Wing had like a 6-minute long shot where
Yeah.
they walk through the entire White House and it never cuts. And all of us were like, did you watch it? We kept watching it over and over again. That takes an amount of skill and planning.
There's some behind
And
the
that
scenes
is
of this,
amazing.
of how they did this. The camera work is unbelievable because you're
Yeah.
right. But it's not one person with a camera because
Right.
in the second episode, there's a shot where they need to get from the school back to, I forget, the police station, whatever. And what they did in other places is they get in the car. The camera gets in the car and drives with
Right.
them. So for some reason, they wanted to get back without doing that. So what they did is they were carrying the camera, following and then they two people brought a drone in, clipped it to the camera while they're still filming, and then it went off into the sky, landed. They caught the camera. It's just,
Yeah.
it's
I
just
mean, the tech
amazing.
teams that are behind the scenes that you don't see. I mean, those are my heart is
Unbelievable.
there always.
Masters.
But this is like kind of takes that in like one step up, because it's not a stop and start. You know, in a traditional thing, you rehearse with the actors, they go off into their trailers, and you spend an hour lighting, and you do all of that. And so this is a lot of pre-planning in order to get this to work. And so that team behind the scenes is doing vastly different work than
You know what else,
than
Guy?
often
Yeah,
happens.
and one way that this is different is you're not dealing with cameramen and lighting and grips and mic holders, and a lot of these the folks on stage, right? You don't have that in a production on stage. You don't have camera people walking on stage. And here you did.
But
And
again,
so
more
what
and
they,
more you do.
So what they
Yeah,
had
you
to
can-
do is they had to dress some of their crew and to also be extras in the
Oh, yeah.
episodes.
Oh, yeah.
Watch the movie 1917.
Sure.
If this is a technique
Yep.
that you like and it moved you emotionally, that
Yeah.
is another entire feature film using this technique.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Lois,
you don't
then,
use any
and Dave.
techniques in your sermons, I'm sure.
David, you had that banner headline up on the screen for a while, and it was talking about the one-take approach to adolescence traps us in tragedy. So why is it trapping us? What's that talking about?
Yeah, so this is just my take, is that because you are walking with the people, because you are eating with the people, you're going to the bathroom with the people, because it's there's something different about, you feel like you're part of the story rather than watching the story. I'm not sure how else to, maybe Sky or Tamara do a better job of this. My experience of this show is that because of the way it was shot, with no breaks or anything, I felt like I was a part of it. And trapped, to me, is not a bad thing. I was in a upsetting but powerful and meaningful way trapped. Go ahead, Sky. I'm sorry.
Well, don't be sorry. Any of these techniques that we drive our emotions with, the wide initial establishing shot is for the audience's sake to go, oh, we are in a big field and there's cowboys down here and there's amazing mountains. And then we get closer so we can hear the dialogue and see the guns firing or something, and and that kind of a thing. So these are all techniques to move the story, keep the audience's attention. Can it be done forever? Do you get tired of it? We get tired of everything, especially in today's, 3,000, 7,000 messages a day. So,
yeah.
I think there's a significance to the fact that it's all in one story. And then you were watching that one piece, because we're so now all about TikTok, but we get a break. You get 10 parts of the same story, but you have to like click on the next part and click on the next part. So I do think that in our world where everything is fast and instant and so in out, to have something that lasts an entire episode where you were in one place with the same people, then that can serve to like draw us in, but can also make us a little more uncomfortable. And so it could be kind of that effect of like, it's too tragic to look away type of thing.
Right. Joe Cali is mentioning that Hitchcock shot a whole film on one shot, even when reels had to be changed every 20 minutes. That's absolutely true.
Yep.
What Hitchcock did to do that is there were breaks, obviously, but he would zoom into a man's black jacket, and then that would be the break, change the reel, and then continue on from there.
Well, actually, it's not that film. The film was called Rope, and the set was built to be moved around. And the whole sequence is a bunch of men trying to solve a murder problem.
Right.
And it's an accident that happened. And they had a crew that would move everything around so the crane could go through and the dolly and that wouldn't hit anybody. And they had to rehearse for almost 3 months. And then they got it. But yeah, rope is a single shot all the way through.
Yep.
I wanted to do a little history for you just quickly.
Let me just mention one thing before you do that. I just want to say that Brody is watching. He says that Alex mentioned that they make heavy use of the DJI 4D camera system. Not only do they make heavy use, that's what they use. They used one Ronin 4D camera. And you can see there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff where you can see them actually doing it. Fantastic. Go ahead.
As far back as 1976, Roman Polanski did it in The Tenant for 9 minutes. The Player in 1992 by Robert Altman, my favorite guy, was 15 minutes. And Russian Ark holds the record. 2002, Alexander Sukharov did a 96-minute film all in one shot. No special effects. Gravity in 2013 by Alfonso Cuarón, 17 minutes, mostly the spacewalk. Birdman, of course, is famous, and it was sort of set the mark. It got awards for it. It's only got 15 minutes of a continuous shot. The rest is all special effects. Sam Menendez did 1917, and that's only 8 minutes. The actual continuous shot is only 8 minutes, but it's pasted together. And Philip Baratoni, who did Adolescence, also did a film called Bowling Point, and it's 92 minutes. It's only 4 minutes shy of the record. So these guys know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And they work on it. And now Coppola did a lot of long shots and continuous shots, but he was heavy into rehearsal as well. He would rehearse with the actors outside of studios. They'd do it in somebody's living room. They'd walk through scenes over and over again until he had the feeling. And then he'd bring them slowly into the set and learn how to do it.
You know,
if you go back to live
history.
If you go back to live television and soap operas, they would change sets under the same camera. It was amazing. I watched Kinescopes one night. It was at Procter and Gamble, and the director behind us for a show that was, he had directed that. He's like, look, there's going to be a set change and a costume change right here, and it was incredible. So it's been around for a while, but this is definitely new to us.
This is worth celebrating. The way this was done, really worth celebrating. I need a Therabot. Or a group of friends. Yeah. Wait, where's my audio?
I don't know.
What happened to the noise? There was no do. Oh well. Let's make this quick because I think I'm wrong.
There's no such thing.
Is there such thing? Do we have Zoom fatigue still?
I've sat in union meetings, I've sat in planning meetings and script meetings, and they go for days, and you're just sick and tired of it after like 3 hours. So if you're sitting in front of a camera and doing stuff, and you're sitting at your desk and not getting a chance to run around in the woods, you're going to be fatigued because you're not built for it. Not at all.
Did we cure Zoom fatigue then? Is it? Did we fix it?
Lois, it was always there. It just we're blaming it on Zoom now.
Lois,
it's sound.
Wait a second. Lois, go ahead.
Fatigue is fatigue. And if you're sitting in front of your chair working on your spreadsheets, or if you're sitting in front of your chair looking at a camera on Zoom, you're still sitting in a chair.
Yeah, but there's more to it than that, isn't there?
Get up and run around the woods.
No, but come on, there's more to it than that. There's the fact that you're looking at yourself, the fact that you're having to have direct eye contact with multiple people at the same time. There's something real to this, isn't there?
They just did a study where they said the things that are causing Zoom fatigue in 2025 versus 2020 are very different. In 2020, what caused Zoom fatigue was noise, because when we first ran onto Zoom, that you could hear kids in the background and you could see the looks on the parents' faces because they knew their kids were part of the call. Now we can have so many things going on, and Zoom gave us noise gate, and it is fantastic. So in that sense, that's what caused the problem then. Now they're saying things like your background if you're using green screen. So we don't use green screen, but other people do. And so those kind of things are causing Zoom fatigue. But I also think that I agree. Fatigue is fatigue. I'm a marathoner in terms of Zoom. I do 14, 15-hour events where I'm on camera the entire time hosting. And, I can get that most people don't do that. But I do think that we have much more stamina now in Zoom if you're doing it regularly than not. And I think it's fatigue of just being in a meeting.
I'm with John Wallace on that one.
Yeah. Tell me, what did he say?
Well, he says the casual hallway conversations disappeared. The a chance meeting, a sudden inspiration, and run down the hallway and tell somebody about it. That's missing. You can't do that on Zoom. It's too formal.
And I think it's actually a conspiracy because it's called Zoom fatigue, like, Kleenex or Frigidaire. It's become a branded thing now. So maybe it's a conspiracy. Maybe.
Well,
Maybe
I'm
it's
just going to point
making-
out because I agree with you, Dave, but I kind of disagree because I had a really interesting experience. If you set up your Zoom rooms where they have the opportunity to have run-ins in the hallway, so meaning you have self-selected breakout rooms, then it's really interesting what can happen. I ran an after party, this VIP party, in a digital space, and they could go from room to room. People would be doing that, and I look and I see in this room, and I'm like, "There's Sarah. She's in this room by herself," and I'm like, maybe she's lost. And I went in and I said, "Hey, just checking in on you. Do make sure everything's okay?" She goes, "Oh, I had to step out to read something and I didn't want to leave the party. So I just picked an empty room."
Wow.
And I was like, we have created a space where people do what they would do in a regular party. They would find
Yeah.
a quiet space to read as opposed to log off and log back on. So I think it's possible, but I agree. We do miss that in business meetings particularly.
Tony, go
Okay,
ahead.
I'm having trouble. And the reason I'm having trouble is because, first off, the people who are doing the study, do they even know how to use Zoom? I'm just asking a question. And the reason I say it that way is because if you are eliminating the things that, as Tamara said, that are distracting, if you have good audio, good video, you are attentive, I think that you can participate in a Zoom meeting as long as you want to. So, like Lois said, fatigue is fatigue, but I think Alex Lindsay uses the word mental load, that you
Cognitive load, yes.
cognitive load. Thank you. Cognitive load. And that if you are eliminating the things that are distracting or frustrating, for example, if I'm talking to all of us and YouTube, and while I'm talking, the message that I may be sharing is, let's say, uplifting and powerful, but my audio is going in and out. They're not going to hear anything that I said. It's not going to be meaningful. And so in the case like that, then you have what we would call Zoom fatigue, because your mind is trying to filter out all of these things. And based on my experience with this community that we all are a part of, the global community of those of us who are trying to do our best, to look our best, sound our best, which is a very small group, we are not experiencing Zoom fatigue. It's the people who are in the mindset of good enough. Well, this is good enough.
Yeah.
Well, it's not.
Right.
And so because it's not, that is when there is this idea that Zoom fatigue, and I think, Sky, you're right. I think we should not be calling it Zoom fatigue.
Well, I'm going to pass the hat.
Digital or virtual fatigue, or
We're going to pass the hat. We're going to get David Apple Watch to remind him to get his butt out of chair, and we will give it to you for Christmas because that's what I do.
Here's
Tony,
you know what I think.
Tony, just for the information here, the study I read on Zoom fatigue was from MIT, so they do know how to do this.
Yeah, I think I read one out of Duke. So
here's what I think the problem is. I think the problem is that I don't think it has anything to do with technology. I don't think it has anything to do with Zoom. I think it has everything to do with the stupid meetings.
Yep.
I,
It's meeting
I think
fatigue.
that, I believe really firmly that every nonprofit, in addition to having a paid Zoom account, needs to have a free Zoom account so they can hold all of their committee meetings on the free Zoom account, which is limited to 40 minutes.
Yep.
And,
Yeah.
and that's
There you
it.
go.
Because 99% of meetings and presentations, for that matter, are pointless and stupid. And
Right.
so,
I would-
am I bored? Am I fatigued? You're darn tootin' I am.
Mm-hmm.
And if you ever do a project
got
with
elect-
JJ, he will cut you
Yeah.
off at 20. Just
There you
Yeah.
go. Yeah.
and we're done.
Yeah.
I got elected to be chairman of a board of a nonprofit at virtually the beginning of COVID, and I had to serve a whole year on the board, and I never met any of the people in person. And we held meetings on a regular basis, and it was my effort to take every person one at a time and teach them how to be in front of their camera.
Yeah.
And by the end of that year, they were all up to speed. Of course, it took a year for Dave to train everybody, but I never got to meet all those people until we had a thing after those, COVID went away and people were getting together again. And I got introduced to everybody. I went around the room and introduced myself. I'm the guy who was on the screen showing you how to do this.
I will posit one more thing that I think may contribute to Zoom fatigue. When you are in a meeting in a boardroom or wherever, you are in that meeting and that is the only thing you are doing. When you are in a Zoom meeting, you can get an awful lot of other things done. And so I think some of the fatigue has to do with the fact that
Yeah.
people are multitasking and not doing one thing at a time.
Yeah. That's for sure.
I think it's called Zoom fatigue because before the COVID and before we all started using Zoom, people were in meetings, but they weren't in lots of meetings. And the number of meetings that everybody went to now versus then has like multiplied. And so if you got fatigued, you blamed it on Zoom. It wasn't. It was just you had more meetings than you used to.
Right.
You're
Absolutely.
feeling better, David?
A little bit.
helping?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brody
Okay.
says that fatigue can also result from bad online presentation of content. Yes, just like the stress of attending a bad
Oh, drive you crazy at a conference.
I
Yeah.
feel
right.
so much better about myself.
And to sit up straight over there.
I'm trying to. What? I wonder why I don't have any audio on that one. Did I mute something? Oh
It's
well.
fatigue.
It's
Well,
fatigue. That's the
It's tech
problem.
therapy
It's fa-
fatigue.
My computer is exhausted. Hey, let's talk about the costs of technology. So this started because last week I showed off all of the pictures that I had created using the new OpenAI 4.0 native image generation. And I have continued to do that. I have spent an enormous amount of time playing with that. And I don't remember who, but someone on the sort of under their breath mentioned something about how much it costs. And yeah, like I had not thought about that. Every picture that I generate is using water. It's costing money.
Yeah.
And
Hardware and software. Yeah.
there's a carbon footprint that I'm leaving. So that's what I wanted us to talk about today. What are the costs of technology? And let me just lay out a couple of them. So first of
I'll
all,
start one.
Dave, you want to start? Go ahead.
Well, I wanted to start with time because you mentioned it.
Oh.
I think when I hear people talk about the cost of technology, it's how much time it takes away from what you ought to be doing, or that it takes longer to do it through a computer than it did when you did it in typewriters and paper. So I think in the sense that I have here, that the biggest cost is time. And then if you add it to the time used to make a data center, the time used to get all that energy redirected to the data center, and then what do we do with this thing? We just waste our time with it.
Well, okay. That seems a little
So
harsh.
that's my position right there. Oh, it is harsh. Yeah. But I got 15 other things. So we'll go on.
Okay. No, because I mean, the goal of if technology is making you spend more time doing something, then that's just bad technology. That's not.
What's the quality of what you're doing, though? That's the thing.
It's not bad technology. If you were to look at your life 20 years ago, and what amount of time did you spend doing what things? How much time did you spend making food and eating it? How much time did you spend at work? How much time did you spend getting someplace or someplace else? How much time did you spend playing with the kids? All that stuff. If you were to break all that down, And then now a person in a similar situation were to break all that down now, my guess is that you would have at least half of your time interacting with technology.
You ever heard of an efficiency expert?
Yeah.
In the 60s, there were these guys with clipboards. They had 3 stopwatches on the top, and they would go into businesses and study what people do and make them more efficient and shorten the steps between things they had to walk toward and all that stuff. And I used to joke with the bankers, the tellers in my bank, about the efficiency experts because they were waiting for the computer.
Right. But what I think you and Lois are talking about two different things. Dave, you're talking about lost time or the cost
Productivity,
of
yeah.
time in productivity. Lois, what I'm hearing you talking about is really a choice that we've made to shift our attention during time from one thing to another, and that is also perhaps a cost of the. I'm saying both are. I think.
And
Right.
it's not that the technology is forcing us to pay attention to it, although that sometimes
No, we're
happens.
choosing to.
It's a cultural thing where if you don't have X, Y, or Z, or
Right.
you don't use X, Y, or Z,
Yep.
then you're somehow on a lower level culturally than people who do. And so it's a status thing. It may be an efficiency thing. Certainly, it's going to be easier to carry around one iPad with 1,000 books on it than it is to carry around 1,000 books. And so, yes, I'm interacting with the technology instead of with the book, but I'm still reading.
Sure.
Right.
So let's look at some of the numbers here. So ChatGPT costs OpenAI $700,000 per day. It's amazing. That's an amazing, to me, an amazing amount of money, and tens of millions of dollars to train it. Goldman Sachs just 2 years ago said that 300 million jobs are exposed to automation, that we might lose those jobs to automation. Content creation. I was sitting with a marketing expert today, and I asked her, I said, do you ever use these tools? She said, yeah, all the time. I said, do you ever worry that these tools will put you out of business? And she said, yeah, that's why I use them, because I have to stay on top. I have to know how to use them well. Billions upon billions of dollars have been invested by huge companies into AI. The energy and carbon footprint that it used as much as 120 homes annually just to train GPT-3, and that was 2 versions ago. The water usage, there's, and we haven't even gotten into the social and psychological costs. Sky, what do you make of it? Is it worth it? Is the cost benefit analysis? Are these tools?
I had the
worth it?
opportunity of traveling last week. I went back to Kansas to visit my family. Had to fly in on an airplane. I got to see the tops of everybody's heads, because you walk into an airport and you don't have to interact with any human anymore, because everybody has a mobile device and everybody's looking at something. And again, the study that I'd love Dartmouth to do is this FOMO thing, this fear of missing out. Or and the word that we talked about earlier of a real test would have placebos. And I think this is the new placebo. This is making my life better because it's keeping me from interacting with other humans that I might interact with. And that's going to be the demise of humanity. But
but
so
having having a
cost for
choice in
you,
an airplane
the
is
great-
amazing.
the greatest
I
cost
don't
for you,
disagree. I'm
Sky.
just saying, David said it was a choice, and I'm saying we have given up a lot of our choice as a self.
Oh no, I don't think we've given up our choice at all. We're just choosing. We're making the choice. That's not giving up choice. We haven't abdicated
agree
our
with that.
responsibility. I'm not willing to give that over to the tech. I can't blame technology on that. So let me ask you though, Sky. So for you, the greatest cost of technology is in our attention.
Well, I continue to look at buildings that get built that people put a lot of money or an effort and energy into, but then without the people, we don't need the building. And so consequently, I look at these tools. Without humans, do we need these tools? And so this is my challenge to myself, is interacting with other humans. And I got to do that with family this last week, because I was physically next to each other. We've had Zoom for 2 years. We haven't talked to each other. My brother passed away. I didn't talk to him as often as maybe I could have. So I think I'm doing this cathartic, being connected with humans.
Yeah.
And if this device helps me do that, great expense. I'll buy it.
Yeah. Tony, Adrian is pushing me in the chat to send it over to you. Adrian Albach wants to hear what you have to say.
Well, I'm not sure I can be objective about this because I love technology. I'm just going to be transparent and say I love technology. I love the idea of being able to learn. I see this as really filling in the gaps where people, I had not Cloudlock, but I had Dr. Hazmat Geiger on Conversation with Tony Mobley a while ago, and he was talking about his instruction with doctors, but he was also talking about how he was doing these learning opportunities for people, and all they had to do was have an Android phone. Most of the people in the world have an Android phone. I see technology as a way in which, yes, there are going to be people who lose their jobs. Yes, there are going to be people who are going to have to navigate to do something new. But didn't the people who created the first hymn books bring in that? Wasn't that a new technology? A Bible in the pew, wasn't that a new technology? The pew itself, wasn't that a new technology? I mean, new technologies happen all the time.
You're on the right path.
And I think that the technologies that are now coming about create an opportunity for people who are left out to be included. And, one of the things that we are dealing with right now is that there are people in the United States who are in digital deserts. And and what I mean by digital desert, I mean, there are school systems that are victims of digital deserts. Technology can be a tool that provides a level playing field if it's used in a good way. And I just think that it's not the boogeyman. I guess it can be the boogeyman, if it in fact does become aware and implement some of the things in the science fiction movies. But I think we're a long way away from that. And maybe we're not. But I see this as a way in which we can lift people up. This is a way to lift people up. This is a way to help people. Tony Mobley was homebound last year. They brought in X-ray machine. They brought in someone to come in and do the blood work. They brought in somebody to bring in a Hoyer lift so that he could be lifted up out of the bed. Technology is a tool. And if you are able to have access to the tool, it can improve the quality of your life.
So I want to push back just a little and suggest to you that all of that is true. And it is also true that this is really all about money at the end of the day.
Return on investment, yeah.
That OpenAI and Google and Anthropic, they are all
chasing the money.
They're chasing the money. And so, they're paying Kenya moderators less than $2 an hour to screen harmful content. And there's worker exploitation and hidden labor conditions, just like there are in other areas. I'm not suggesting this is something new, but it is growing. It's on a massive scale. even with our iPhones. And so, yes, it lifts some of us up. Thank God it lifted you up. It is also one of the costs, I think, is also pushing a bunch of people down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Can I
I'm
push back
curious.
just a little bit? Can I just
Push
push back
back,
just
push
a little
back.
bit?
Push.
So I think that you're absolutely right. But the difference, I think, I agree with you from the standpoint that it is about the money. Yes. But as you know, I was getting ready to go into a scripture. Forgive me. But
Preach. Preach.
but the idea that the crumbs from the table can benefit the dogs that are under the master's table. And I say that to mean Tony Mobley has an opportunity to have this positive interaction with all of you who are in various places in the world. I am not unique. The difference is that I have had access to the technology that allows me to interact with you.
Right.
Would Tony Mobley have ever had a chance to control a show that was being performed in Ireland? Again, I'm not unique. And I said that to say, David, that you're absolutely right. Things are about money and corruption. But this is a time when regular people have the opportunity to change their existence. Last night, I had a conversation with Taylor Sunderhouse. Taylor Sunderhouse was a part of the original interaction of Conversation with Tony Mobley. He ran the show. He did everything, right? He was an IT guy. Taylor Sunderhouse, along with his interactions with Conversation with Tony Mobley and Office Hours, now went from a person who was an IT guy, radio guy, who works for a television station, who has implemented some of the things that he's learned from using Guy Cochran's NDI and all of that technology to actually being able to, he's actually able to move forward the television station because of the things that he has learned. This is an opportunity for regular people to change their existence if they can have access. And so you're right. Yes, it's all about the money. And we know the ones that have the most money will make the most money, and they will continue to abuse people. But this also is an opportunity for people who are at the bottom to get a chance to pull themselves up some.
Before we jump into other people, I just want to bring up this from Brody Hefner. One hazard of tech is that some ill-informed people think it can already replace thousands of humans at the FDA, the CDC, and Social Security offices, and at Veterans Health Services. It's an interesting question, right? Can't technology, or we think about technology as being able to help streamline, help us be more efficient. One of the costs is we are now firing a lot of people. Lois, go ahead. Unmute yourself, Lois.
Thank you. You asked about cost benefits. And I think that one of our problems as a whole culture, as a whole, well, America, including Canada, is that normal, regular folks don't have a clue as to how much stuff costs, whether it's the money for things. Somebody says, oh, well, it's you use a lot of water for that thing. And I'm going, water? What are you talking about? Oh, well, you have to cool it off. I'm going, okay, well, you cool it off. The water doesn't have to evaporate. It's there. You use it again. Okay. Does that work? No, that's not how it's done. So the costs of things is not known. And we look at the cost as, is it a subscription, or do I buy this thing, or what do I pay monetarily to get this service? What we don't see is, what am I giving people? I, as an individual, or us collectively, are turning over information, attention, uh, all this stuff that can be used against us if the folks who have it have bad intentions, or can be used for us if the folks have good intentions, and who knows.
I'd like to remind people that in the beginning of the industrial age, we burned a whole lot of coal and filled the air with fumes and darkened whole cities to run looms and machinery and trains and things. And we got out of that. We said, that doesn't work. We found more efficient ways of doing it. I'm sure AI will get more efficient and they'll use less energy.
Yeah, but you know what?
The
We didn't find more
the scare
efficient
they got
ways.
from the peak thing that came from China. What was that called? It's
DeepSeek.
DeepSeek.
DeepSeek. Thank you very much. See, that uses less energy and it's more efficient and it's easier to use. So
I
this
think
whole
we-
thing it's gonna be
Is
like
it?
the .com.
Is it,
bubble,
or is it just
right?
good PR?
Yeah, I agree.
No,
I'm not
listen, guys,
convinced,
I
Tamara.
think that one of the biggest problems we have where we are at this moment in time is we are forgetting how new we are into this process. This is not we are making a huge shift. We saw a huge shift with the internet. And when Web 1.0 was happening, it was also all about money. And everybody said, hey, what we're going to do is we're going to give
Banner
people a
ads.
little bit for free, and then we're going to charge them for it. And Facebook still isn't going to be able to charge people in the traditional sense because the people said, yeah, no, I'll just go somewhere else. But I do think we're at the beginning of this. So yeah, technology is super expensive at the beginning. It was super expensive to buy a laptop computer in, the
1990s.
early,
yeah.
even in the 90s. So I do think that some of that cost is going to be figured out. It does cost a lot. I think the attention cost is something different, but I think there's been lots of things that have shifted our attention throughout the years that are technology based.
I love telling people that the Vision Pro costs the same as much as my first Mac.
Right.
So
Right.
in the late 80s when I bought my first Mac 2, it was like $6,500, and that's what I have to pay for a Vision Pro now.
So my children have never lived a life without the internet. So I'm the digital immigrant and they're the digital native. But I do bring in the old axiom of there's no such thing as a free horse. But again, at my age, so what does that mean to you, David? What does that phrase mean to you? Because I'll give you my definition of
Well,
it.
you
but
start. You start. Go ahead.
I did. I set you up.
Well,
Get
what's
it
your
out there.
definition?
Go. Definition of it. Well, there is no such thing as a free horse in the sense that you've got to feed it, take care of it, manage it, house it, walk it, give it its shots. All because if that's the anecdote about free is not really free. And this is what, again, Lois was talking about earlier. We don't know what things cost. You are starting to enlighten us on $700,000 a day for Chat GPT to run all of the machines that, yes, our little subscription is a pittance of the big iceberg of a thing that's underneath. So that's my question about this attitude of free. And yes, I used to buy my software and it would run for years. And then the subscription concept, i.e. the
Continual revenue.
Right.
the gym model of, every 60, it comes automatically out of your credit card, whether you exercise or not. Well, $300 later, I haven't been to the gym in 2 years.
You are maintaining the equipment for others. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Well,
That's my gift for you, David.
It's interesting because what you just said, Tamara, I have a sense you were joking, but in some ways, that's exactly how it works. I mean, that's exactly how it works. In fact, when you think about gyms, their business model bets on the fact that
That you won't go.
Exactly, that you won't go, because if everyone who signed up went, they wouldn't have enough room.
I've been to that
be a
Friday night
disaster.
meat market. It's not fun.
Right.
It's royalties for the songs that you play. It's continuing to buy the thing that you're using.
But like the initial computers that we were buying were $4,500 to $10,000, and they could hold one video on your iPhone, just to put in perspective. So I do think we're at a young point in this, and it's
But then
happening
again,
very
Tamara,
fast.
But you know what, Tamara? Now we're paying $1,000 for a phone.
Right.
I mean,
But
so yes, the cost of computers
you
has
will-
gone down, but
You will never,
Tony,
ever.
when you and I were growing up, the phone on my wall did not cost
Right.
$1,000.
No, mine didn't either.
Tony, go ahead.
And so this is a thing that I constantly share with my parishioners in the service. Stop calling your phone
A phone.
a phone.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
It is a
not
computer.
a phone.
Yeah.
It's a computer that accepts phone calls.
No,
Correct.
you're right. You're right.
It's
That's a really good point.
It's a camera
Yeah.
that receives phone calls.
Yeah.
And I say that because I'm still hearing people. The mindset is, I'm paying $1,000. You're paying $1,000 for a computer that answers calls.
Yeah. No, you're
That's
right.
what you're
You're
doing.
right.
But
That's
that
a good
also
point.
keeps me in a text chat with my family that we are able to keep in touch with each other every single day, multiple times a day. So no one is going to convince me to get rid of my cell phone.
Okay,
It's
but
just
let
never
me let me just so let's go back to though what Tony and I think Lois also mentioned it, that for that very reason, spending $1,000 is a cost that you are willing and I are willing to pay. We are lucky that we can do that.
Absolutely.
And because the phones are because the handheld computers that accept phone calls are priced the way they are, that leaves a whole bunch of people unable to have that access. And it goes right back to what you were saying, Tony.
Yeah, and that's why the majority of the world is using Androids,
Right.
because there are a variety of different prices,
Right.
price
You get a
range.
$200
and
pretty good phone. Yeah.
Now, most of us are spoiled in
Absolutely.
that we want the iPhone,
Yeah.
and it is going to be $1,000. But there are quality phones, and believe me, I'm an Apple fanboy. I admit it. But there are Android phones out there that are quality phones that provide good hardware. And an Android person will probably get mad with me and say this. The issue is that they have to accommodate all of these different Android phones in terms of software. They got to make sure it works on all the stuff.
And
so that's
even
where
the
the
bigger
problem comes
issue
in.
is what you pointed out before, Tony, which is these digital deserts where you can have any kind of phone you want, but if there's no cell tower, or if there's no broadband, or if there's no way to connect, and that's another real cost of this. And I'm not talking about the financial cost. Of course, there's a financial cost to building out that infrastructure, but you want to know the bigger cost? The cost of leaving people out, the
Right,
cost
I
of
agree with
not
that.
giving people access.
But I think that is part of our responsibility as humans now, is to really be advocating for access for everyone, and in any way that we can, whether that's in education, whether that is in communities. The truth of the matter is, we don't like poor people. We don't want to deal with that problem because it is not sexy. So that is why we call it education. But if we want to solve the problems in education, we solve poverty. That will solve education.
We all talk about wanting to help the poor until they want to put some affordable housing in our neighborhood.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it's
Or
not in my
if we want to
backyard.
give them an expensive piece of equipment, because why should they have an expensive piece of equipment that I bought? I obviously I disagree with that.
So-
But I do think that access is something that we have to continue to advocate for in any of our communities that we can. And that community is your smallest community. It could be your house of worship. It could be your school. It could be wherever that is in your path. That is our job that we need to be doing right now. I really believe that.
Brody says that compute and telecom power per unit of cost will continue to increase exponentially. And the truth is that yes, LLMs, for example, are getting more economical, and prices do come down. The problem is that technology keeps growing. It's not going to come down and then we're going to say, okay, we're done. That's enough. We're going to keep wanting to grow. I want to raise one other cost, and this is not. It's probably unfair of me to put this onto technology, but I'm going to put it out there anyway. Technology is only as good as us. Even LLMs, even artificial intelligence, whatever that means, is only as good as us because it only learns from what we have created so far. It only learns from what we've created. And what that means is that these tools all express the same isms, the same racism, the same homophobia, the same all the same gook and yuck that we have created in our world. Technology amplifies it and spreads it because all it can do is spread what we, garbage in, garbage out. And I think that is a real cost of this. That muck can be thrown around much wider to a much wider audience. Go ahead, Lois.
You keep using the term LLM, and not everyone understands what that means. It means large language models, and that is what these tools are learning from. And I come back to, there's lots of different tools now. Where are they getting their information? We talked earlier about having a therapy bot, but that would need to be trained on the education that a doctor would get. Is there such a thing? How do we know? So I want to advocate for finding out where these things are getting their information.
Yeah.
Well, and to add on that, I think that the problem isn't that a lot of information is getting out, because the problem is that people are getting the information that is in their kind of Google Cloud, that is in their narrow
Right.
scope. I can go for
bubble.
hours and never see anything that I don't want to see unless I physically type it in and play around with the cloud and try to get my TikTok stream to show me something that is against what I believe. So that's the bigger issue.
And this is where, David, you are opening up hope by this conversation. Tony, you continue to have conversations, not performances. And I drive the same roads that murderers drive on.
Right.
It does not make me a murderer. So the humanity of this conversation is being exposed to one another, even people in Canada.
I actually, Sky, I'm glad that you said
too
that.
easy. It was too easy. I had to, David.
No, I'm glad that you said that, because this whole conversation was making me think that people are going to think that we're getting down. I mean, the five of us, we're about as nerdy. The six of us, that we're about as nerdy as you get. I was looking at the Zoom and I didn't see myself.
You count, David. We see you.
Thank you.
We see
you.
I'm seen. I feel seen.
Every week we
Thank
see
you.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, someone could listen to this and think, oh, those folks, they can't stand like that. Those old. No, I mean, we're about as deep into the newest tools and the newest things and the shiny objects as you could possibly be.
Because that's my business.
Because that's our business.
Right? That's my business.
What has come out here is our responsibility as lovers of technology, our responsibility to be aware of the real costs, and to do what we can to make right a world where those costs can be really harmful.
Mm-hmm.
And as a social human, the question that I continue to ask are dignity and respect.
Yeah.
And how can these tools support those two things as a human, as a species?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because
Love that.
without each other, we don't need
Compassion
any
at
of
every
it.
level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love that. Dave, I think it was you who in the chat suggested another topic for another week could be fraud and technology. Was
Yeah.
that you? That was
Yeah.
interesting. I mean, there's a
Yeah.
lot to talk about there.
Yep.
From telephone fraud right up to the highest AI. Yes.
Yeah. Maybe we'll look at that for next week. That was a great suggestion. Thank you, Dave.
Thanks.
And thank you all of you for taking the time to be here. I love my Thursday nights. I'm so blessed to be with all of you. Love it so much. And thank you to all of you for joining us and watching. Please head over to the rundown.show. Join the Discord over there. You can leave comments. You can join us in Mukana. You can join the panel. You can do whatever you want. It doesn't cost anything. Oh, my Lord. Have a lovely night, everyone. Bye.
Oh.